Hi, and welcome to Season 4 of Beyond Teaching, brought to you by the Psych Sessions Network. This series is hosted by Susan Nolan from Seton Hall University, Adjunctive Akinseler-Smith from City College of New York, City University of New York, Asani Sewell from LGS Legacy Weight Diabetes Institute, and yours truly, Eric Landrum from Boise State University. For now. The Psych Sessions podcast Beyond Teaching is all about the teaching, research, and clinical skills that psychological scientists need to know about to be successful. You know, all the survival skills needed to thrive in the academic or clinical workspace beyond your formal graduate school training. All the stuff that we were never taught while we were in the graduate school classroom. For Season 4, we have 12 episodes in store for you, with a weekly release starting July 2022 and delightfully stretching into October 2022, helping you make that transition from summer to fall, at least in the Northern Hemisphere that is, whether you are on the semester system or the quarter system. What's in store? We'll discuss the importance of staying up to date, helping students with personal statements and sparkbirds, student researchers, what a unionized campus looks like, a peek at the life of adjunct faculty from two different perspectives, interacting with the media, cleaning out your office, and it might not be one of the four of us you thought it would be, saying yes or no, and Maria Banford's advice about that topic, ascension and doctoral versatility, dealing with professorial conflicts, and taking tenure out for a spin, and career sustainability in the face of the Great Resignation, or what you might call the Big Quit. In Season 4, we also had guests join us for 3 of the 12 episodes. I'm not going to tell you who or which episodes. That way you'll be curious and you'll want to listen in order to satisfy that natural curiosity that you have. So there. Please enjoy Season 4 of Beyond Teaching.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another session of Beyond Teaching. I'm here with a couple of my colleagues. I'm Susan Nolan from Seton Hall University.
Eric Landrum from Boise State University.
Asani Sewell, Pacific University.
And we have a guest. Would you like to introduce yourself, guest?
My name's Andrew LeBlanc, and I'm from Seton Hall University.
And we asked Andrew to...
Is that the only affiliation?
Well, I do have 2 other affiliations, also from Montclair State University, and technically still Kane University, although it has been a few semesters now.
And that introduction might clue you into why we invited Andrew to talk with us today. We want to have some conversations about the adjunct experience. I think it can be useful for folks to hear about the adjunct experience if you have not done it. And I think it can also be really useful for those of us full-timers to learn more about what it's like for the adjuncts in our departments. And I will say this because he probably won't himself, but Andrew LeBlanc is an award-winning adjunct instructor. In fact, one year he won Adjunct of the Year for the entire university, and Seton Hall is quite large, so he's an award-winning.
I do what I can.
Do what you can. So maybe I'll kick it off with a question for you, just to give us a little bit of a sense of your work life and how you balance it all, and maybe throw in your coaching too.
So it actually kind of all changed about 3 years ago. So up until that point, I was adjunct teacher at Seton Hall in multiple departments. So I was kind of skirting around rules a little bit, we can say, because I was teaching in the physics departments, the math department, and the psychology department. And then in summers, sometimes with the physical therapy department. And then Seton Hall kind of said, hey, you're doing a little too much for our liking because of rules. And you, like I said, you're kind of skirting around the rules. So I was doing that, plus also teaching at Montclair State, the traditional 2 classes or so many credits that a professor can teach, and then also 2 at Kane. So I was teaching, I think my record was 14 courses one semester.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, that was fun. That was great. A lot of driving. It's a lot of driving as well. Fresh air was nice as I went from school to school. And then on top of that, I coached swimming at a local YMCA for some extra money as a part-time coach, and then helped out the Seton Hall swim team. So as some background, I did go to Seton Hall, and I was on the swim team many years ago. So still knowing the coach, I kind of volunteered my time a little bit. What happened was we kind of went through a coaching change, and being good friends with the head coach, he asked if I'd like to apply and be the full-time head coach. So it became a full-time job for me where I actually would get things like health benefits, which was a nice change because I'd never had that before with all my different courses. And it kind of lined up well at the same time that Seton Hall was saying, hey, listen, rules are rules and you are teaching too much, which I totally understand and respect. The fact that I had kind of gotten away with it, so to speak, for so long was good money wise. I think it's somewhat of the traditional adjunct story of teaching quite a lot.
Well, Andrew, let's be really clear here. It's not that you were teaching too much. It was that you were teaching, and this isn't unique to Seton Hall, by the way. Let's not pick on Seton Hall. Boise State has this same evil policy that I'm about to enunciate. You weren't teaching too much. You were teaching so much that that institution should have been paying you benefits by, I'm guessing, local laws. And Boise State has the same policy. There's someone in our HR department that watches the number of credits that an adjunct faculty teaches in a year. And when it gets to X, benefits kick in. So somebody watches that, for heaven's sake, and make sure that they don't teach over X. Now, I would like to actually purposely break that rule so people could have, healthcare, medical, dental, that kind of thing. So you weren't teaching too much. You were teaching too much for someone to pay the full boat. Right?
I was teaching too much for my position. Yep.
Yeah.
And totally respect that. Oh, did I break out a little bit?
A little bit.
Okay.
You did. I thought you were just being silent to
best
agree with me
internet.
completely. That's what I thought. Yeah.
Well, technically, yes. So yes, absolutely. I was teaching too much for the hall, and I totally understand. That's why, when it came down to it, it's okay. I can only teach for this department. So now, again, not having the largest paycheck in the world for coaching, I am able to supplement it with at least 2 classes a semester in the psych department.
But does the coaching provide for the health insurance?
Yes. Yes. As a head coach, or not head coach, sorry, assistant coach, I do get healthcare through the university, just like any other full-time employee.
And I know, Andrew, you're traveling for the swim team right now and you're in a hotel. I wonder if you would break out less if you turned your video off.
Oh, okay.
You can try
Happy
that.
to.
And we'll see if that works better.
Okay. Yeah, the internet has not been spectacular here.
It sounds much smoother now.
Okay, good.
Asani, do you have any questions?
Yeah, Andrew, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about, things that you enjoy about being an adjunct, because clearly you're passionate about the teaching and all the work you do if you've gotten good enough to win these awards and things of that sort. So what you enjoy about being an adjunct and what's really hard about it. I mean, certainly the not getting healthcare benefits is horrible and very difficult, but I wonder anything else that you might articulate in that way.
Definitely obviously the healthcare benefits. I'll just do the negative kind of side first. The healthcare and benefits, of course, it's rough, and you're an adult, and bodies do what they do. So healthcare is a good thing to have. But at the same time, pay is typically, a little bit lower. You get paid by the credit. So you kind of have to watch it every semester. It's never a guarantee that you're going to be asked back anytime. For example, there was one semester where there was a changeover at Montclair who was kind of scheduling the adjuncts, and just wasn't anything personal. They just missed me. They missed my name and didn't realize who I was. So all of a sudden it's like, oh, we don't have any classes for you. So not having a paycheck like guaranteed. I know nothing in life's a guarantee. Obviously there's, chances people can be laid off or something, but that slight bit of a uncertainty semester to semester. Okay, am I going to have it so I can make sure I make my rent, for the next couple months? It's always a little nerve wracking until you kind of have your assignments. But on the other side, I did really enjoy traveling around school. None of them were very far from each other. They were all within, somewhat of a half-hour drive at most, depending on traffic. And you get a little bit of a different perspective, one university to another. You kind of have a different body of students, and I all had very positive experiences in all 3 schools with the students. But at the same time, you got a different vibe from each one. It's kind of nice to have that different approach and different perspectives.
So,
And what about
Andrew,
the,
oh,
oh,
no,
go ahead.
No,
And what
Andrew, I
about the
don't want to make
positive
any
side?
assumptions. All right. I yield to the senator from New Jersey.
No, I was asking him he was going to flip it to the positive side. And I was
Oh,
encouraging.
those were the positives. I actually did enjoy traveling around school to school
Okay.
and doing the different students. And also, as I was alluding to earlier, when I taught in the different departments, it changed it up a lot for me, department to department. So, I teach a lot of statistics, and that's the only thing I did in the math department. And stats is fun. I do enjoy it, but I also like to teach other things as well. So being able to also teach psychology, also doing the physics labs that I was teaching, the variation for me mentally was a great positive because, it was a whole different experience. All right, I'm working with just science majors here. And then, all right, these psychology majors, I'm teaching them stats, but it's a little different stats than the ones for the general social sciences. So there was benefits to me. And then I think there was benefits to them too, because I would learn things every time I taught, like, all right, this worked and this didn't. So I could bring something new to a different school.
Okay, Eric.
And Andrew, I have a couple. I I don't want to assume that
Uh-huh.
you would prefer a tenured track continuing appointment, but I'm going to ask, in the grand scheme of things, is that what you would prefer, or do you prefer the freedom of flexibility of what you're doing now?
If I had a choice, absolutely, I would prefer something stable at a school, just one school would be great. Whether it's a tenure track or lecturer type position. I know currently with my degree, I have a master's, and that I would probably need to go on for a doctorate in order to do that. And that's, quite a bit of work, which I'm not afraid to do some work, but at the same time, just you get to a certain point in life where it's, you're doing a number of things and you get comfortable too. So absolutely, stability in one position would be the preference. And I would just have to kind of decide, all right, what is it I want to do in order to get myself into that spot of a full-time spot?
Right. Plus, if you went back for a doctorate, you'd actually have to stop some of your teaching,
Mhm.
make time for grad school, which would mean take a hit to income, which
Yep.
would be, probably counter to what you need to do. And then I wanted to ask you if there were one or two things that you wish the full-time faculty at Seton Hall, Montclair, and Kane knew about the life of an adjunct. What would either positive or negative, like they don't know that I have to do this or I have to put up with that. What messaging would you love for them, your colleagues to hear or comprehend?
That's a good question. One thing, I mean, I think they already know this, but it's kind of good thing to emphasize is that it just can be tough doing all the teaching that you have to do in order to make ends meet, so to speak. For me, I mean, you all seemed kind of surprised when I said there was one semester that I had 14 courses. And again, that's, on the high end, I'm sure. And it was a little bit earlier on as I was teaching compared to most adjuncts. I do know of some other adjuncts who do similar amounts. I know of another adjunct who is at Seton Hall and in the history department who I said I worked as a coach at the local YMCA. He's a lifeguard there to make ends meet. So he teaches at he also teaches at Montclair. I think he's at Bloomfield College, might be, or maybe Drew is his other one. But then he also lifeguards too.
And related to that, Andrew, what are things that departments that you've been in do that make you feel welcomed? And what are things that they don't do that you think could easily be? I'm sure there are things that we could do that would be hard to do, like
Mhm.
lots more pay that we can't do. But what are things that psychology professors in the departments in which you're an adjunct could be doing to make you feel more welcomed and more included?
So as I said, I think Seton Hall's a little unique, being that I am a graduate of Seton Hall, went through the master's program there. So I know the faculty very well. So again, I'm not going to say I feel like I'm a full-time faculty member or anything, but when I walk through the halls, I don't feel any different as a faculty member compared to anybody else. I don't see them looking at me differently. So I've always felt very positive about that. And I would assume that they would treat any other adjunct professor the same way. One of the things that could be a little annoying, and I understand why, because as an adjunct, I'm not full time and don't have contracts and stuff, but it has happened at different schools where I've lost a class at the last second because a full time faculty's course didn't fill up, and they took my section and gave it to them. I had one particular semester years ago where I had a class full of people who were very excited to take me because they had taken me for a previous course, and it was perception, which is kind of my favorite course to teach, and it kind of blends almost all my disciplines together. So it's a very passionate course for me, and I was very excited. And literally 3 days out, I got the email, sorry, there was a COG class that didn't fill and got canceled. You're not teaching this class now. And it was a summer version. So I didn't get any sort of pay for prepping the class because that was the rules at the time. So little things like that kind of happen. You say to yourself, all right, it's the game that we play. So it is what it is. I'm not going to sit here and get mad over it, but it's the way things go.
We'll get mad on your behalf, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, and Andrew,
I may have been the chair at the time that happened. I'm sorry.
well, ironically, it relates to the last recording of this podcast we did. If there had been a union at Seton Hall at the time, the adjuncts might have been protected a bit from that, because that's unfair. At least you should have had some reimbursement for your prep time.
Yeah, at the
And
very least.
just when a full-time faculty member's class gets canceled, that doesn't necessitate that they have to teach something else.
Well, that's what happens at Seton Hall. That is the policy handed down from the dean. And we are told that if it doesn't fill, then we are to give an adjunct class. I mean, it's not a decision that the chair is making on her own.
Right. But the dean could change that policy.
The provost probably could change that policy.
Somebody could change.
Yeah.
Y'all are a private school. You could change the policy.
Yeah.
The ironic part was I was actually at a school other than Seton Hall that this happened. And last 2 years ago, I think it was, there was a transfer student coming in who had taken a perception class, and they asked me to check the syllabus to make sure that it kind of aligned with how we taught perception. And it was my syllabus. The professor who had taken my class had just used my syllabus that I had already posted online. And it was literally my exact syllabus, just with his name on the top. And I was like, well, I can't attest to how the class was taught, but same topics, I can guarantee that.
Oh, Andrew.
Wow. A
Sorry.
violation of intellectual property rights.
It is.
Andrew, you don't sound like you have an evil bone in your body, but when you got ousted, I should say, 3 days before your class, it would have been fun to turn to those students who wanted to take it from you and say, okay, now students, I know this is a little bit inconvenient, but drop this class.
Several of them did. I
Good
got
for you.
emails. Well, I got emails being like, why are you not in front of the room at this moment? And then they're like, well, I'm out. Hopefully I'll see you again later.
Mm-hmm. Andrew, I'm wondering about, so on paper, your job is to teach the courses,
Mhm.
but I imagine that there could possibly be some other departmental duties that kind of slip in or creep in that aren't a part of your contract, but just because you're a good teacher and students like you, that these things start to happen. I'm thinking about mentoring students and things of that sort. So can you talk a little bit about any aspects of the job that aren't on paper, but that you find yourself regularly engaging?
I wouldn't call it straight up advising, but I do give advice when students are asking about classes, and I give them my best understanding of, the class that they're asking about. They'll ask about other professors. How's this one hard or not? And I was like, they're all challenging in their own right. But, I try to be honest about classes and what they can expect from it. I've had crying sessions in my office before of somebody who just life's falling apart and they needed somebody to talk to for 10, 15 minutes. I remember instinctively being like, I'll be right back, as I went got a fresh box of tissues for them. And I'm happy to do it as long as I have time. I understand it's not technically under my duties as an adjunct teacher. It's, come in, teach the course to my best of my ability and be available to my students to a certain level. And then, that's pretty much it. But I'm more than happy to kind of just be somebody to talk to. I've had students in previous semesters reach back out and just say, hey, could you possibly just give me a hand on this real quick? Even if it's a totally different class. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you ever get asked to write letters of recommendation?
I do. And I try to explain to them that, all right, my class, I explained to them very closely that that's great that you liked me as a teacher. You have to make sure that you did well in my class. And that sometimes one of the other kind of downsides with adjunct teaching is, especially if you have a lot of classes, you sometimes almost have to pare down your class a little bit in terms of what you ask them to do because you only have so much time to grade stuff.
Right.
So there are some classes where I love a bigger paper or projects or, even more assignments or something, but there's only so many hours in a day. And so that can be a little difficult. And then how that can hurt, like a letter of recommendation, is I don't have as much to say. I think you did a great job in my class. I think very highly of you. And I can talk about how you were very punctual and participating and did great on the test, but I can't talk about your writing skills. I can't talk about your presentation skills, things like that. So that can be a little bit of a detriment sometimes. Like I said, I've had a few who you were A students in my stats class, but I can basically tell them you worked really well with your calculator.
It's interesting because Asani sort of prompted the question that I asked by asking about things that you do that are not part of your job, and that would include letters of recommendation. And I'm struck by your answer, which is not, hell no, that's not part of my job. But the fact that you are passionate about your class and your students, and in principle, if you feel like you could write a good one, are willing to write it, and that speaks to a sort of unconsidered burden on adjunct professors.
Oh yeah, but I do love actually writing them when I do have time. And I always warn them ahead of time. I was like, you are going to have to send me reminders as we go. And I hate to put that burden on you and I should be responsible, but I'm doing 800 things. You have to send me reminders. I have one right now. She's trying to get into medical school. And so I'm like, all right, you need to keep sending me reminders to make sure that it's done. Because I have a draft, but I'm going to make sure that this is a good letter, not just a letter that I send in.
Well, Andrew, if it makes you feel any better, for a student who's taken one class with me, it'll either be a very short and poor letter, or I just refuse to write. Because what am I going to write? You took my research methods class, you earned an A. We talked twice after class. Sincerely, our Eric Landrum. I mean, if it's a relatively large class and I don't get to know the student, I have very little to say. And I try to tell the student, I have very little to say, and I don't think this letter is going to help you. So uh, that you don't know your students well and can not write for them sometimes does put you in the same boat as full-time faculty.
And I would definitely will pass that along. Typically when they ask, I'll say to a couple, there's the combination of I just don't know you as well, or hey, listen, you really didn't do that well. And it's great that you like me, but I don't have the most positive things to say about you. I'll try to put them down as politely as possible. But then there are some others. I do have typically a contingent that have taken me multiple times for different courses.
Majoring in LeBlanc.
So they'll come back for the third or fourth. I had one letter I just wrote. I think she took me for 5 different classes.
Wow.
I do teach a lot of varying classes in the department as well, which is another benefit that they let me kind of do that.
I want to be respectful.
If someone could major in Nolan, they should. That's for sure.
I want to be respectful of your time, Andrew, because I know you're heading off to do some swim coaching soon. Are there any thoughts that you want to leave our listeners with?
Well, trying to think here as you put me on the spot. Adjunct teaching, it is great. I do really enjoy it. I mean, I'm still doing it, obviously, so not quite to as many classes, which is good because, you get to a certain point, you can only do so much and you get more tired teaching all the classes, but I've always loved it. I've always felt respected by the faculty and the students too. I have heard stories of students being like, oh, it's only an adjunct, so it's not as big a deal. You don't have to wait as long if they're running a few minutes late, something like that. I've never had an issue like that. And maybe I'm lucky on that front. Maybe it's kind of more the norm, but I've always felt that the students never saw me any differently. Half the time they didn't even know I was considered an adjunct. And if I ever said it, they would say, what's that? The other thing I also get is I get called doctor a lot, which I don't have a doctorate, but I'm very polite. I'm like, well, not a doctorate. I appreciate the promotion, but don't have that yet. But again, I've always felt respected. It's tough. It's not easy. And to be honest, sometimes it would be nice if it was just a little bit easier. But at the same time, I clearly have enjoyed it because I've been doing it for a while now.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Andrew. And for our audience, just a reminder, we've been talking to Andrew LeBlanc from Seton Hall University and Montclair State and Kane University as well. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you so much.
Andrew.
I enjoyed it. It was fun.